This video is brought to you by ExpressVPN. So there were two movies that came out last week that I was interested in covering, but again, I was sick for like 2 weeks. Then I got sick because of the antibiotics I was on. So I was just too exhausted to cover more than one. And as much as I love heist movies, you guys by a very narrow margin decided you would rather hear me talk about Paranormal Activity: Next of Kin. Because yes, they made another Paranormal Activity movie, except they didn't at all. This isn't really a Paranormal Activity movie in the slightest. And that alone is pissing a lot of people off, but I had a good time. So I did this as a little combo. We're gonna do like a regular video, but then every once in a while I'm gonna throw in some like actual reactions from when I was watching the movie for the first time because I thought that would be fun. So this is clearly what happens when a studio owns the rights to a dead franchise and someone comes to them with a fairly decent idea for an original movie and they say, hey, instead of making an original movie, let's just take it and try to work it as a straight to streaming new installment of said dead franchise. To be slightly fair, this did originally have plans to have a theatrical run, but because of COVID, it just right to streaming. The writer Christopher Landon is somebody who's worked on Paranormal Activity movies before, so I hope that it was like him that pitched an idea, or Oren Peli, the creator of the franchise, and they, along with horror daddy Jason Blum, decided to make it a standalone Paranormal Activity movie. I'm basically just like really hoping that this wasn't somebody's like project idea that just got turned into a Paranormal Activity. Anyways, because this movie isn't trying to like retcon Ghost Dimension, which was terrible. It's a completely separate standalone movie. So the Paranormal Activity movies fall under like the found footage genre, but it's usually based on like security footage. Weird things happening at night, being caught by cameras. The first one was a super low budget of $15,000 indie flick. People liked it. Paramount bought it and spent $200,000 to beef it up and change the ending. It made a ton of money and then it got turned into a franchise that greatly overstayed its welcome, as is the way. So the whole franchise was supposed to be done, but then this one pops out as its own thing. And they absolutely left room for this to build into a sequel, but it's not doing the best. It's got better reviews than Ghost Dimension, but still very rough. And I think people are being a little bit too harsh, critics and viewers alike. I thought it was a decent viewing experience. I thought it explored some interesting concepts, even though if you start thinking about it too much, some things start seeming dumb until you just have to stop. I didn't adore it, but I think it has some potential. I would probably give it like a 3 out of 5. But it really just feels more like Blair Witch meets Outlast 2, the video game. But it's not as unique or atmospheric as the former, or as unsettling or scary as the latter. It's like the fake documentary found footage versus like security camera vibe. Basically, there's just a lot of other media that captures a lot of what they were going for in this, but better. Like, you want to be messed up by a small community, you watch Midsommar. That being said though, a lot of people fucking hate this, and that's okay. I just appreciate what they were going for. I think its worst quality is that sometimes it seems to be throwing in things just to be creepy that don't necessarily have like a clear tie-in down the line. And there's a couple times where it just completely drops like the docu-style filmmaking for a good shot, and that's lazy. Like, I don't care if you got a good shot, if it makes no sense that someone would be holding a camera there, it doesn't work. So the premise of the movie is that this is a documentary being made by a girl named Margo, who was adopted and found out her bio family is Amish, and she'll be meeting a relative for the first time and hopefully going to visit the area her mom grew up in. And this student duo has quality equipment. So for found footage, this movie is filmed super well. It's probably like the best quality found footage / fake documentary you've ever seen. It's filmed better than earlier seasons of The Office, which for some people is what's gonna stop it from feeling like it fits into that Paranormal Activity family. Excuse me, who is filming Chris in this moment? So her long lost relative here is Samuel, and they apparently found each other on 23andMe because he took his year away, met a girl, and hasn't been back. But he's still weirded out by things like cameras because they're not supposed to be filmed.
Vanity is a sin, but...
Oh no. I'm going to hell. There's probably a bigger reason I'd be going to hell. So one of the many nonsensical aspects of this movie is that she somehow has very clear security footage from the hospital of her being abandoned back in 1997 by her mom. For one, why would they still have that footage? How did she get it? And why is it so clear? That's a better shot than what people get on security cameras today. And honestly, maybe your mom got out of a nightmare situation and you shouldn't go look into it. She felt strongly enough to both escape the situation and not leave you behind, so like maybe just do some research from afar, bro. She even acknowledges that it looked like her mom might have been scared she was being followed. But it's time for them to fly out and meet the sound guy, Dale, who is a whole ass character.
I got COVID like 5 times. All good, baby.
He's goofy as all hell, but you know that there's guys like this in every single city and they make an impression on everyone they meet. This is another movie that's gonna mention COVID like one time because it's taking part in 2021 and then that's it. Just completely abandon it after that. Like, you get you're going for a documentary and that was going on in 2021, but like either just don't do it or commit to it. Like, pick. And a lot of the stuff that happens is just to like establish things for later. Like, they show Chris using a drone, so you know they're gonna do something with that. At one point, Chris is showing the kids how slow-mo works on the camera, so you know that's gonna come back for something. So they finally pass by a horse-drawn carriage, start losing reception, and they are officially in Amish country. So it's nighttime and snowy, but Samuel obviously couldn't call Jacob to warn him, and he's the apparent community elder, and Margo's grandfather, who's not down for outside visitors and not super stoked to let Samuel back with his genes, so they head to a motel where some spooky stuff starts happening. Like, a window in the bathroom spontaneously opens and it's a little weird kid. Eli somehow followed them all the way from Amish County in a snowstorm at night to a motel? Did he somehow sneak in the van? Did he walk God knows how many miles in the snow? We'll never find out. Actually, I'm pretty sure he gets horse-drawn buggied there because this is deception. So they take him back and Jacob's so thankful that he's like, okay, yeah, you can stay and you can film and you can set up a generator and use electricity. Seems totally on brand with the Amish. And things are pretty weird from the get-go. They all get woken up at like 2 o'clock that first morning and see people walking into the forest with lamps, which seems unusual. Then there's things that just seem weird. Like, they ask this one girl if she made her dress herself and she says she got it from Walmart.
Do you have TikTok?
How would they know about TikTok? Samuel also mentions that they should avoid the woods because there's like bears there, but most bears would be hibernating in the winter. Like, if you stumbled upon one, it would be pissed, but yeah. So Chris is obviously like, oh, we're pretty sure we saw a massive group of people wandering into the woods in the middle of the night. And Samuel's like, oh, it was probably just an evening hunting party because like someone's cow got attacked. Because it's always so smart to hunt down carnivorous predators at night. Attacked by what, Samuel? You could have at least gone with like coyotes or wolves. The other thing he says is that her mom used to sleep in the room above the one they're staying in, but then deflects them to the animals in the barn.
Do they all have like nice butts like that?
And first detection of paranormal deterrent, they have massive bags of salt. And Samuel's like, oh, it's just for the animals and the ice, but like that is also used to protect from demons. Thank you, Supernatural, for teaching me the real life lessons. Margo then almost falls through a baler hole onto a bunch of spikes, which is obviously foreshadowing somebody is absolutely falling down that hole at some point. So they start interviewing some of the other girls in the community, and one just spews out that Margo's mom hooked up with an Englishman, which is just apparently their way of saying someone from outside the community. And the more she tries to ask questions, the more they're just kind of like, yikes, so many chores, gotta go or we'll get in trouble. Then there's like this weird dinner that Margo actually like vibed with. She's like, I felt so welcome and it was so great for people not to have their phones out. But then like Jacob says something in his like pre-meal prayer about being thankful that their sister Margo was returned to them, and then some other stuff about sacrifices. So like, yeah, no, that sounds like they're never letting you go. But after dinner, the generator dies and Chris has to go try and fix it. Oh fuck, it's a kid. Apparently he was sleepwalking, but then it seems like they're bringing him in the direction of the barn. And the next morning, Margo comments that she feels like she's hearing somebody moving around in the room above them, the room her mom used to stay in. Then they run into this little girl who's playing with a doll named Sarah, and Margo's mom's name was Sarah, and then the little girl is like, she's still here, but then runs away. So again, later that night, she hears somebody moving around in that room, so she decides to go investigate. And lucky for her, the door is unlocked, but it actually seems like it unlocked for her. Ooh. But when she gets to the room, no one's there, which would have been enough for me to bail out or like have gotten somebody to come with me in the first place. But she just starts looking through drawers and finds a tin that's filled with letters that Sarah seemingly sent or left for Jacob. And I actually paused on this thing, and it's basically just talking about how no one will ever find her, that she's horrified of whatever she found out, that she's been lied to her whole life, and she's horrified by what they wanted to do to her and her baby. So she hid Margo so she'd be adopted and then tried to hide herself. But seems like she was probably tracked down. So I'm guessing some kind of weird sacrifice ritual, like they are born for the slaughter. Then she suddenly notices a little door behind the dresser because one of the dresser drawers spontaneously pops out. Is this the ghost of Margo's mom offering her help? I don't know. So she crawls on in there alone like a dumbass. And it looks like some creature thing is painted on the wall in blood. Excuse me, what the fuck? But Jacob wakes up probably because a dresser drawer slammed to the floor and then she had to like drag the dresser out of the way. So she hides under the bed as he gets into the room, but then it sounds like something's like creaking on the floorboards and he freaks and like runs out. Then someone seems to lie down on the bed. Oh, no, absolutely. No, fuck that. No. Run. And then instead of immediately running out and being like, hey, Jacob, wait, she just tries to use the night vision camera to like see who's on the bed. And like, you're obviously expecting like a face to be there, but like, there's nothing there. And she still crawls her ass out and isn't freaking out. Cults, kids, and a ghost. And of course, Jacob locked up the room again when he left, so now she has to try to climb out the window. Which honestly, if they'd had Sarah locked up in there and didn't have like the window completely latched up, like, what are you doing? But right as she's trying to open the window, a face appears. But hey, she makes it out, it cuts to the next day, and she's showing Chris and Dale about whatever this dark figure is. Chris thinks it might be a lens distortion. Dale is immediately down for haunted farmhouse though. And they still don't just leave. And she also doesn't mention the fact that somebody was creeping around the room. Like, she just says she felt a presence in the room with her. But like, bitch, you felt the presence of a physical being lying down on a bed. So they decide to interview Jacob, not about ghosts, about her mom. And he says she was always a nonconformist growing up, and that eventually turned into her trying to take her own life and then ultimately getting pregnant with a boy from town, which resulted in her being shunned in the community, so she had to stick around but had to be alone all the time. But Margo shows him the letter and asks what it meant by like, you can't have me or my baby. And he says it's because they don't allow babies out of wedlock, so she would have been taken as a baby and then given to another couple. So Margo is disgusted, but Jacob says that it isn't any more cruel than being abandoned in a hospital, and that Sarah only cared about herself, which is absolutely foreshadowing.
I have this weird feeling she's still here.
So Chris finally does that drone flyover I was waiting for and comes across a creepy church. And it is barred up, a lock and a big wooden plank with German writing that says, so far, not further.
Can you pick a lock?
Oh, of course. I'm black.
But right as Dale is about to show off another spiffy talent, Jacob comes through the woods, super offended that they're trying to get into their place of worship. And this is where the tone of everything just really starts to shift. Like, they head back for food and everything seems kind of okay, but then there's this like lady spacing out in the corner just, oh my god, she's potato peeling her hand. She's potato peeling her hand. Yeah. She was potato peeling her hand, and you never hear or see her again. It just feels like something weird they threw in to creep people out. So now it's Chris's turn to wake up from weird noises. And he's smart and wakes up Margo, and it sounds like somebody's screaming, but it's actually a goat, so they spy on them from the barn loft, and these motherfuckers pull out a two-headed dinosaur-like bleeding baby goat out and kill them both. Then the old lady says it's starting to spread. What's starting to spread? Either way, they follow them to the church, which is where they were bringing the dead goats for like presumably some kind of ritual. So the next day they talk to Samuel, which I thought was a horrible idea. And he's like, well, animals get sick and we just got to do what we got to do. So when they say they followed everybody to the church, he freaks out for them being way too intrusive. So the mood is all messed up, but they now absolutely know that something is being hidden from them. And instead of like, again, I don't know, leaving, they decide to distract Samuel so they can sneak into the church. And it's mostly empty except for this big center podium thing and a bunch of paintings on the ground. One is a painting of that creature that was painted in blood in the attic thing with the name Asmodeus on it. I always want to say Asmodeus, but I'm pretty sure they say Asmodeus. And then another painting is a dead two-headed horse. Another one is people being killed, and the only way to avoid destruction is sacrificing, with a final image of a girl tied up next to a pit with some like witchy looking lady next to her. Ominous. Then they find a weird body harness and a bunch of salt, which is even more ominous. Then they notice blood under the podium and see that it can move, and it opens up to a massive pit. Just like the one in the painting where they must have yeeted the dead animal bodies. So we got salt, a massive pit, and like animals being tossed down. We got a demon pit. And this absolute genius wants to harness up and get dropped down. Like, why wouldn't you just tie the camera down, like, and do a little look around? Best case scenario, you're just gonna see a bunch of splattered animal corpses, and worst case scenario, you're gonna die. So they send her down, there's crosses all over the wall, it stinks, and then the harness gets stuck. Oh god, there's definitely something down there. Oh god, it growled! Why do people do stupid things? Then Chris stops answering, but he manages to yank her up right as something was definitely coming at her. Pull her up, pull her up, pull her up, pull her up! But when they go back over the footage, Chris can obviously hear something too, and he's like, maybe it's just like an animal that they feed sacrifices to? The salt says otherwise, sir. There's a demon in that pit, and if it was an animal, like, how cruel would that be? So Margo decides to do some more sleuthing and goes into Jacob's room, and in his closet is a hidden laptop laptop with internet and a webcam. Amish my ass. And this dumbass has emails open from Samuel that seem to be pictures and info about Margo, and she bails out just before Jacob comes back. And apparently these emails have been going back for like well over a year. Samuel had been spying on her the entire time. They had her class schedule, pictures of her, they knew where she lived. Seemed like they were manipulating her over the long con to figure out a way to get her down. So she immediately wants to leave, but the van battery is dead because of course they're gonna disable their vehicle. And like, no, I would have walked to town that night if people had been spying on me that intensely. You can just bring a tow truck down to get the van or service the van and bail out. No. If that was happening to me, I would not be staying in that house. Because of course, some more supernatural things start up. There's a bunch of noises in the hallway and Margo can't wake up Dale or Chris. So I assume they were drugged so that the people could take Margo, but honestly, I think it's worse, but we'll get there. So she's freaking out, the door creepily opens, and then it sounds like something is running through the hall. Yeah, it's not gonna do, yeah, okay, yeah, there she goes. It looks like she got slammed into the ceiling. Is that Voldemort? Then Chris starts filming the next day and she is just like staring off into nothing, writing on the window in the condensation. Then they notice the blood all over her bed and then all over her, and somehow on the ceiling, there are footprints in blood on the ceiling. Are you kidding me? I was about to make an uncomfortable period joke, but that is literally what the Amish doctor tells them.
I'd say it's exhaustion, coupled with an unusually severe menstrual cycle.
Look, I don't know about that one. I might have been able to accept that explanation if she wasn't currently catatonic and there weren't footprints in the blood on the ceiling. We will never get an explanation to the blood footprints. So Dale and Chris start heading to town to get a battery for the van, and luckily a male driver picks them up. And do you know what that driver says?
You know, the bailers ain't Amish.
Apparently there are a bunch of Amish families in this general area, but every single one of them will tell you that the bailers aren't Amish. So for some reason, they want the world to think they're Amish. Because clearly they're okay shopping from Walmart. That girl knew what TikTok was, and Jacob has no issue using internet and computers. So cult, trying to live off the grid in a way that won't invite too many questions. But they get to the hardware store and ask a guy if they can use their computer.
Just don't look up anything weird.
So they look up Asmodeus, a demon. And what they find is chilling and fabricated for the movie. Asmodeus is in fact the Prince of Demon, that checks out, but they add in a myth about like a Norwegian village being afflicted by a pestilence that destroyed their crops and killed their livestock, and ultimately pushed people to start killing one another. So to stop it, they turn to a white witch who managed to trap the demon inside a godly woman, and it would have to continue being passed on from daughter to daughter. Otherwise, it'll unleash its chaos upon the world. Fun. So they think this is a cult of crazy demon worshippers, so they start rushing back to the farm. Because even if none of it is real, they clearly think it's real. And of course, Margo is gone by the time they get back, as is the rest of their stuff. And everyone's hiding in rooms. Sam is mumbling about women being the most powerful creatures to carry this great burden, then tells them all to stay behind locked doors until the bells stop ringing. So obviously, Chris runs to find her while Dale deals with the van. And just as he gets to the church to save her, Jacob pulls a gun on him, saying that if he stops the ritual, Asmodeus will be able to jump from body to body and just destroy the world. So they get into a scuffle, Chris bashes him in the head, and he falls down the pit. Oh no. And props to Chris, this is stupid as fuck, but no hesitation, he gets right down in that pit where Jacob is snapped in half. So he runs into the cabin where this old lady is like chanting over Margo's body. This is probably the White Witch, until Chris yanks her off and she starts freaking out about the salt barrier being disturbed, which is when he finally notices creepy CGI monstrosity on a throne of bones. So they run out, CGI monstrosity massacres the lady. We get a classic and almost gotcha, but you're lucky it's chained moment. Also pretty sure that must be Margo's mom's destroyed body as a result of being a demon vessel. So they get the harness, thankfully Dale shows up just in time to bring them back up. And again, Chris the real gent sends Margo up first, doesn't even try to like clamber onto her and like risk breaking things. Chris is too good for this. Actually, no, maybe I take that back, because if he had just listened to Margo and they left the day before, they wouldn't be in this situation. No, don't look at your feet. Don't look at your feet. Okay, you gotta. Holy shit, it's climbing the rocks. Oh my God. So they start running. Chris had dropped his camera at one point, which was causing it to like glitch a bit, which I feel they only did so that they could show this slow motion footage of Dale getting ripped apart. Literally like a video game. It reminded me of Until Dawn, which is honestly also better than this movie. Dale didn't deserve that. It would have been so funny if he was the only survivor just driving off in his van at the end. So they start getting stalked through the barn by this thing. A breather? No, it's gonna be behind, it's gonna be behind. Oh my God, it's coming at you like a titan. Okay guys, like, look, just kill the demon? This is taking place in the modern times. You have 15 seasons of Supernatural to work with for your education. I haven't watched all 15 seasons of Supernatural, so like, I don't know where they stand on demons anymore. And just as it's about to kill Chris, Margo starts talking to it as her mother. And it's actually working, but then Margo slams it in the face with a hook and then kicks her into the baler. Wow, that was your mother. Look, I love my mom. This is also where the found footage documentary style of thing just completely goes out the window. Like, Chris is knocked out. Who the fuck is filming? They get out, realize they have to go all the way back to Dale's body to get the keys, and then the bell starts ringing like crazy, and as they're running back to the van, people are just on fire. There's eyes burst out of skulls, kids are dead, it's total chaos. But they get the van started and bail, which is when it cuts to some police footage. One starts walking to the barn because it sounds like a baby is crying, and then the baby cry morphs into an adult man wailing, and it's Simon. It's Samuel. I don't know why I called him Simon. Now clearly the host for Asmodeus until he jumps into someone else. Excuse me, what? And he can make people do things just by looking at them, so he makes the cop shoot himself. If you weren't sure that's what happened, it'll then cut to a different cop and his like car security footage, and you can see him shoot himself in the head. Then Samuel drives off into the snow to spread his destruction. So a lot to unpack here, and if you don't think too much, I think it's a pretty decent watch, and maybe even if you do think it's still pretty, there's some interesting concepts here, but you'll start thinking like, what was in the room that sunk the bed when Margo was there? It can't be her mom because she was in a demon pit, so can Asmodeus become some kind of like spirit present? The weaker his vessel gets because he can't cause the full chaos, but he can like start messing with certain things because that's kind of what those paintings suggested. And it would make sense to be Asmodeus as much as the mom because they would both want her to leave for different reasons. Asmodeus so that he could escape and wreak havoc, and her mom so that she wouldn't befall the same horrible fate. Was that kid actually sleepwalking, or was he being influenced by a demon getting stronger and then put to pasture? Because the painting said the weakest would suffer first. I'm guessing the vessel bodies just naturally start to weaken over time as they're aging, so that's why you constantly need a next one. But if Margo didn't have a kid, wouldn't this just be delaying the inevitable for like another 20-ish years, which really isn't that much? Like, you'd assume the body could contain it until like a natural death age. But it seems like Margo's mom got pregnant like relatively young, so like she'd at most be in her 50s. Also, even though it's being contained and can't jump around, you still have to like tie it up and line it with salt so that it can't like go on a massacre or kill people. Like, I don't know. I guess that's fine. The really big thing is what happened to Margo the night before. Like, at first I assumed that was going to be them taking her to be the vessel. And there were all these people chilling in the barn that night, and the figure in the doorway kind of looked like the witch drawing, but when I zoomed in and up the brightness, it kind of just looked like Voldemort. But it clearly wasn't them taking her to be prepped, because like, I don't think being slammed into the ceiling like that is a human ability. Was that a manifestation of Asmodeus as a person? Was that like somebody Asmodeus was like controlling telepathically? Was he keeping everybody else passed out? Because it can't be the CGI monstrosity, that thing's underground. Okay, I paid more attention to the scene. A handprint from an invisible hand appears on her shoulder when she gets yanked, so demon telepathy poltergeist? Like, I have to assume it was Asmodeus doing some telekinetic fuckery to make sure Margo couldn't get pregnant, so that even if they succeed in transferring him to her, there'd be a timeline of his prison. Like, it's clearly getting powerful enough to start sending those like early signs, like the two-headed goat. It's been commented on that things are getting worse, so I have to assume that's what happened. Like, I feel like her mom only found out what the reality of her situation was after she got pregnant. Otherwise, she probably really would have tried to avoid that for her child's sake and then just bailed out. But based on how little these people seem to value bodily autonomy, I'm surprised they just didn't try to make her have another baby. So yeah, some issues with the logic, and maybe I'm just nitpicking, because like, I think really when it all comes down to it, because I don't need everything explained, it's demon shit. Why did that happen? Demon shit. To avoid those pesky little devil worshippers from tracking you down through the World Wide Web, you need today's sponsor, ExpressVPN. By connecting to their fast and secure server locations, ExpressVPN makes your internet think you're in a different location, so you can take full advantage of region-locked content and hide from people trying to turn you into a demon vessel. And say you want to catch up on some Wes Anderson movies before you watch The French Dispatch. Just head on over to unox.com, look up anything you want to watch, and it'll let you know exactly which countries it's available in. I just set ExpressVPN to Germany, and I was good to go. And it's not just for Netflix. I use it all the time for a variety of streaming services that aren't available in Canada. I'm using it right now still to watch a lot of What We Do in the Shadows on BBC iPlayer, which is only available in the UK because it makes me happy. ExpressVPN has been one of the most useful tools for this channel. It's super fast, I never run into buffering issues, and I can use it across multiple devices with no issue. So if you want to try out ExpressVPN for yourself and find out how to get 3 months free, head on over to expressvpn.com/Jedi or click the link in the description below. So that's going to do it for today's video. If you watched the movie, let me know what you thought. Otherwise, thank you all so much for watching. Thanks as always to my Patreon supporters. Subscribe to the channel if you're new. Leave a like on the video if you're into that kind of thing. I hope you're all having a fantastic day. I'm mostly okay, and we'll catch you all later. Also, follow my different social medias because I do polls sometimes, so you can like contribute. Like maybe you really wanted to see an Army of Thieves video and you couldn't weigh in. I weep.